Hello and welcome to Jesse Bear Book Club. Today we are talking about the second part of His Favourite Wife, Trapped in Polygamy by Susan Ray Smith. In the first part of this review we covered Susan's teen years and her early married life. Now we are getting into the nitty-gritty of living polygamy day to day for years. Susan has 2 babies in quick succession and tries to be happy in her marriage, but she really struggles when Verlin marries Lily. Not only is Lily pretty and young, she also has her own money, which makes Susan incredibly jealous, as she is dirt floor poor and has to feed her babies inappropriate food which makes them sick, and she has no money for a doctor. Susan ends up selling her guitar to Lily to afford the doctor and to buy real baby food, and the resentment only builds as Lily actually gets to build her own house with her own money, while Susan is stuck living in a trailer for years. Susan becomes close with Beverly and Irene, her sister wives, which makes her life a little easier, especially now all the sister wives are living in Los Molinos. She slowly discovers Irene and Charlotte hate each other cordially, and she understands this all too well because she feels exactly the same way about Lily. The tension between Ervil and Joel is only growing in the background of Susan's life, and it is now dividing her family because her aunt and uncle are staunch Ervil supporters. Susan and her sister wives eventually all have houses they build themselves in Los Molinos, but during the build that lasts 6 weeks, Susan notices for the first time Verlin has very little time for his 30-plus kids and is very hard on them, preferring to send them outside so he can go about making more babies, and this starts to annoy Susan. Susan is only 19 and feels neglected, only getting to spend a night with Verlin every 6 to 8 weeks. She makes the decision to start making a fuss when someone steals her night with Verlin, and of course this causes rifts with her sister wives, especially Irene, who previously she was very close to. Verlin gives in to Susan and decides to take her to Colonial LeBaron for Confronts, but when they arrive they discover the Prophet Joel has been shot by Ervil's hitman. The shit hits the fan in more ways than one. The church has no leader, but it also makes the people question if Joel was the real prophet, because he claimed he was going to live until the rapture, something he obviously cannot do now. Susan's beliefs are shaken for the first time, and she decides she should try to read and understand the scriptures herself, something she has never done before. The Bible, the Book of Mormon, and the Doctrine and Covenants all contradict each other, and Susan is confused and upset. She can't seem to understand why the books contradict each other so much, especially regarding polygamy. Verlin goes away on a mission with high security and doesn't come back or write for weeks, and Susan is very lonely in Los Molinos, even though she moves in with Lily for a little while, but tensions are always strained between those two. She is also pregnant again with her 4th child, and decides to move back to Colonial LeBaron to be with her mother. But when she arrives in Colonial LeBaron, she realizes her mother is in Utah looking after her own mother. But her father is there with his second wife Maria, and they set her up in Maria's old house and buy her furniture. Susan's little sister even moves in with her to help out, and things are good. Susan starts realizing she can make decisions on her own, and she is happy not having Verlin around. She is still very poor though, living on less than $20 a month. Then there is a terrifying moment when Susan is awoken in the middle of the night and told Los Molinos has been attacked and that people are dead. She and her children and her little sister have to hide in the wood. But it soon passes and none of her family have been hurt, but some of her cousins who are Ervilites threw petrol bombs in the attack. Susan has a completely nightmarish experience after the birth of her 4th child, where she has no help and is left drained, looking after 3 toddlers and a newborn, and has to clean up after her own birth. I felt like this moment in the book was a big turning point for Susan when she realizes how self-reliant she really is and takes steps to rent her own house and starts drinking coffee, something a good Mormon girl should never do. Susan even starts fantasizing about other men, and I feel she would have left Verlin then and there if she had not become pregnant again on the one occasion she slept with him. Despite knowing she doesn't need him in her life, Susan is still powerfully attracted to Verlin, and she is terrified of being a single, pregnant woman with 4 small children under 5. And Verlin preys on this to convince her to move to remote Guatemala in the jungle with his first 3 families. Susan doesn't want to go to Guatemala, but feels she has no choice. When she gets there, it is worse than anything she could have imagined. Flies, mud floors, complete isolation, and no amenities whatsoever. All 4 families share a communal barn as a living space, and there is little privacy. Jeanette, Susan's 3rd child, gets a huge boil on her neck, and it is impossible to keep her children's clothes dry or clean. Susan's pregnancy is advancing, and she is worried about giving birth in the jungle, and she is questioning Verlin's reasoning for moving everyone to this inhospitable place 30 miles down a dirt track. When Verlin finally returns to Guatemala, Susan throws a fit, demanding to be taken home, but Verlin simply attempts to pacify her by building her a house. I think Verlin cannot even comprehend why Susan is upset, even though she keeps explaining it over and over. After days of fighting, he finally agrees to take her back to Colonial Lebaron under the pretense that she will have her baby there and then return to Guatemala. But they both know she is never going back. After Susan's baby is born, she has some time to evaluate the poverty she and other plural wives live in. She is also struck by the neglect when she discovers Verlin has courted and married another girl as soon as he dropped her off in Colonial Lebaron to give birth to their 5th child. Then, within months, Verlin is courting one of his brother Joel's widows, and that seems to have been the straw that finally broke the camel's back, when Susan confronts Verlin about him courting yet another woman when his wives and children already live in poverty, and he can see nothing wrong with his actions. She finally makes a plan to escape. Susan convinces her father to take her and her children to Utah to visit her older brothers and their families. And when she gets there, she simply tells her brothers she has left Verlin, and they help her. She calls Verlin to tell him she has left him, and a few days later he turns up to simply take her home like she's had a fit. But he puts up little to no fight when she threatens to have him arrested for statutory rape. The book ends here with her vowing to God she will find a way in the world to support herself and raise her children right. Then there is a very interesting prologue documenting Susan's life after she left polygamy and how difficult it was to get into everyday society. She almost was convinced to go back to Verlin, her life was so difficult. Susan also discusses the continual infighting and murders that went on in the Lebaron family, and I was shocked and saddened to discover Verlin was killed in a suspicious car accident. He wasn't a saint, but I do believe he loved Susan in his own strange polygamist way. I give this book 8 out of 10. I was expecting a little bit more murderous drama after reading the back of it, but it was still very good and eye-opening to see the level of poverty Susan and her children lived in and considered normal, going without protein for weeks. Reading this book made me feel incredibly grateful I wasn't born into polygamy like so many. Susan was 2 years younger than me when she left polygamy and already had 5 children. I can't imagine how she coped. I plan to read Susan's sister wife Irene's book next, called Shattered Dreams. The Lebaron polygamy group is new to me, and it is fascinating because it has a recent violent past. Susan Rice-Smith did an interview a few years ago on a Christian YouTube channel about her life, which is worth watching, and it sheds some light on this book. It's a little bit preachy, but you can just tune that out, and I will leave a link to it in the comments below. You can also watch The Sister Wives Did It on Discovery Plus, where Susan talks about some of the later murders that went on. I won't spoil anything though. This is the end of this review on His Favorite Wife by Susan Rice-Smith. Make sure to subscribe to this channel so you won't miss my review of Shattered Dreams by Irene Spencer, and leave a comment letting me know your thoughts on the Lebaron polygamy group. And remember to like this video because it really helps out the channel. You can also follow me on Instagram at Lady Jessica Riddell. Until next time, remember to keep sweet.